folks, and welcome to another beautiful Tuesday afternoon. If you could only see the weather outside, it's not really beautiful, but we're going to call it a beautiful Tuesday afternoon anyways. We have one of our own today in studio. This is going to be a lot of fun, exciting, talking about free motion quilting. We're going to learn so much. For those of you that have thought about, hey, I'm going to start a free motion quilting business, or I'm going to start a long arm business. This is where you're going to learn and get that knowledge that you need to be able to drum up the business in your area. Now, Brian is out this week. He's going to go try his luck at caddying for a friend. Good luck, Casey, by the way. You'd probably do better if you had a different caddy, but go Brian.
Yeah.
So Joe Allen's filling in on this Tuesday afternoon, so welcome,
Hey
Joe
guys,
Allen.
great to see everyone.
And then, of course, one of my own, my sister-in-law, who is extremely talented in her own right, hence the show. Passion for Free Motion Quilting is the name of this week's episode. And, of course, as I said a minute ago, we have Lynn Martelli with us, so we're going to dive right in. Oh, before we do that, I want to mention something. I called Jess earlier to find out what the big to-do is on the website this week. This weekend, I think it's going to be any purchases double the points. You know,
That's
anybody
awesome.
that's ever gone to stores or grocery stores or health food stores like I go to, and you get those weekends where you get the extra points, that's always awesome because it helps you with extra purchases. So that's something really exciting going on this weekend. So you're going to want to purchase as much as possible this weekend on the Martelli Notions website. So real quick, Lynn, let's get started. First of all, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Yeah, no problem. Couple questions. I want everybody to know a little bit about you. They know a lot about people in the company, but you're one of those names that are kind of hidden and under the radar, but you do so much for the company. Used to do a lot of trade shows, right?
Yep.
Taught the quick bind, which was a presser foot that would bind both sides of the quilt at the same time. Never missing the top, never missing the bottom, always with that perfect miter. But tell us a little bit about Lynn Martelli and how you got started, other than the family aspect of it. So the floor is all yours.
Well, I've been sewing my whole life. I started in 4-H, or actually sitting beside my mother in the home. She made all of our clothes, Easter dresses.
Wow.
Yeah, Easter, or Christmas, any type of outfit outfit for your picture day at school. And I always was sort of interested. She had the sewing machine where the pedal was beside her kneecap, and I would always want to push the button. And she would tell me when to stop. But I've been sewing for a long time, but I started with garments and 4-H. And my dad was one of the 4-H leaders, and we did little pageant shows, and I made overalls, and we embellished with lace and things like that. And I came in 3rd place, so I said,
That's not bad.
Yeah, I guess I'm okay. Maybe I'll stick with it and do a little here and there.
Well, did I ever tell you about all my 50th place trophies?
Well,
Well, we have time. We'll get into that.
50, I have some of those too.
Every kid's got to get a trophy.
Yeah,
That's what's
yeah.
wrong with the world.
Hey,
We all win.
good
We all
job.
win. Everybody wins. But anyways, then, you go to college and you get married and have babies, and then you sort of move into the home decor things. So I make curtains and pillowcases and comforters and, just whatever to decorate the house,
So you've always said.
So
I mean,
I've always
you've done
said.
everything.
I do have a question that everybody's
Yeah.
probably curious to find out about there. How come you married such a homely looking guy?
Because he was the last one.
Hopefully my brother's not watching.
Yeah,
this.
but have they actually even seen your brother though?
No.
Because
My
your brother
brother-
doesn't do anything with the business.
No, he doesn't. My brother was smart enough to steer clear and do his own thing. He's a very smart guy. He's a good-looking guy, by the way. Just giving him grief in case he watches this later, because I'm sure Lynn will pull this up in bed. Hey, Jim, look, I'm on TV. But
Did
no,
you
he's a
see
great
what your
guy.
brother said?
No, he's really a great guy. I mean, if it weren't for him, he's helped me get started in a lot of things I've done extracurricular outside the Martelli quilting business. So great guy. But I did not mean to interrupt you.
No, that's
So
okay.
continue on, please.
And then when I guess became a part of the family, which is, I guess I'm going on 30 years now, they've always, John and Marcia and the gang have always bring things to the table. They're always inventing, always trying to improve or whatnot, just anything that they see that grabs a hold of them. But when they started the quilting and the sewing aspect of things, I was always sort of interested, and I just started my family, and they said that it was good and okay if I do a show here and there, because I just, as a young mom, staying home, I wanted that break, I needed that outlet.
Right.
So they were weekend shows for the most part, so I started doing one a month, and then occasionally I would do 2, if we double book, because things were still growing at that, and that was like over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy to see everything that's come about and surfaced, and the staff growing and things like that. But I did that for about 2 years, and then I had to stop. And because my husband was like, okay,
Enough's
You need to be
enough.
home.
enough. You know, it was fun while it lasted, but enough's enough. And and then the long arm came to the floor.
Shannon was like that. I remember traveling for about, 15, 16, 17 years, and she goes, I think the final straw was for me about 7 years ago when Brooklyn, of course, at the time was a really young girl, got my suitcase, and she just laid down it and went
wanted
down. I
to
said,
go
that's
with you."
enough, that's enough.
Yeah.
But we were blessed enough to have several talented people, sales reps come in right away. We had Joe, you've been with us a long time. And
Yeah.
of course, Brian, and we had Scott, and we had Linda, and then of course, as we did more shows, we grew the sales reps, and then they became more knowledgeable. But when you were doing the shows, what are some of the products that you enjoyed showing, and why were you attracted to certain products more so than others? If that makes any sense. Go ahead.
Yeah. Because when I started 20 years ago, along with David, we just had the quick bind, the minute miters. We had the Curve Master with some tweezers. That was a great little combo sale. And then we had a rotary cutter, of course. That was our big, huge, bring to the table item. I had Judy at the time. She worked with me, and Judy demoed the rotary cutter, and I always do the quick bind and the zip bind system. And then she would also do the Curve Master here and there, but she mainly just showed the tools that he didn't require a sewing machine.
Oh,
I tend
sure.
to stay focused on the sewing machine things, and if I love showing the quick bind,
There's only 2 experts in the world on that product. You know where they're sitting, right?
right here.
And right here. those are the only 2 experts in the world with that
Linda
quick
was
bind.
pretty. Linda's pretty good with it,
No,
though.
she was good with the zip bind.
Yeah.
She was good.
Yeah,
And
that was
that
her
entails a
deal.
little bit different.
Okay.
The quick bind,
okay.
there was little tricks that you need to know.
And we would compete.
Yeah, we had to teach those
Yeah.
little tricks, like having the perfect height between the bottom of the foot and the feed dogs. That
Right.
was important.
Yes, yep.
Sitting your body to one
Yeah.
side, and your body positioning was very important. But there was about 4 really important details that if you really didn't know, and the instructional DVDs back then were good. And that brings me to my next point. There's lots of people like, I hear so much about this quick bind. Where is it? Well, there's a couple reasons why we stopped making it, and I would like to get back into making it again. It's on my dad's to-do list. But a lot of the newer machines came out from a 7mm to a 9mm, and it changed everything. It changed the format, changed how the foot would sit on the machine. It changed the width. So those are all important features. But for those in the past that have asked me, hey, where's this quick bind? It's on the to-do list. My dad has a folder full of stuff, and that is one of them. I would love to get that back out, because I'm telling you, I could bind a king-size quilt, perfect top, perfect bottom, perfect miters. I would never miss the top. I could swing that needle all the way out to less than 1/8 inch from the edge and never worry about missing the back side.
Yeah.
Catching both sides,
That's
which
wow.
was huge
Yeah.
at the time.
The fascination from people was just awesome.
bet.
I mean, I felt like I was some magician.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you were.
Everybody was like, "That's incredible! I can't believe this."
Well, you'd see, they'd bring in some of their pictures, or they'd bring in their actual projects, and they would
Right.
be beautiful. And then you look at the binding, and the binding would,
Yeah.
you'd have the binding, and the stitching would be about, I'm going to be facetious here, but it'd be a 1/2 inch up. And you'd have more of from the stitch line to the end of the binding than you do from the stitch line to the raw edge of the binding. So it just looked horrible. And then, of
Yeah.
course, it was uneven. The stitches would look like a zigzag. So a lot of people would use a zigzag stitch just to make sure they covered both top and
Right.
bottom.
Yep.
So
I
this
did.
was something that, and we could even, and I don't know if you remember this, Lynn, you could even take a 1-inch strip, because ours worked so efficiently, Dad designed it so efficiently that you could cut it 2 1/4, but you'd only have that one thickness on the outer edge.
Right.
So you could take 1-inch strips and you could tack it just on the inside of your 2 1/4, rolling up, and put it on your binding holder, and then it would finish a double thickness, so the raw edge would never wear out. You could finish a double.
Yeah.
And the binder would take it as long as you knew, this is the secrets that Lynn and I knew, as long as you knew to cut those strips 1 inch and just tack it on the inside. So just a lot of cool things that you can do with that binder. I miss it tremendously, but I tell you
I know,
what,
I wish we had one to show it.
I did,
because it would
I
be
know.
Like, that's crazy.
I know. I even remember there were some people that would tell me, oh, well, I have to do hand binding because mine's going in a show.
Right.
But they didn't realize at the time the reason why people wanted hand binding is because machine binding looked so bad.
Yeah.
But with how that quick bind developed the binding and how it put 2 layers on that raw edge and the way that it looked, I would have put that quick bind against any hand binding that was in a show. You?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just
nice and neat.
Yeah.
Just did everything looked good.
And as
Yeah.
far as you can bring that stitch all the way out to the edge, nobody had ever been able to do
Yeah.
that. And if they did, they never caught the back side because it was so uneven.
Yeah, it's a professional finish.
Yeah, and that's exactly a good way to put it. And the bottom of that foot, it trapped the binding to be perfect on both sides. So when that needle went through the fabric, it was catching both sides. No matter how far you brought that needle out to the raw edge, it was catching both sides.
Yeah.
And that was one of the unique things about that product. But man, I missed that product. So to carry on though, that was one of the big products that you like to show. Was there anything specifically in particular at the shows that you would like to show besides the binder, or was that your baby?
That was my baby.
Kind of mine too.
Yeah, that was my baby. And the miter in the corners too, because those
So
two went
easy.
hand in hand. So yeah, because everybody said I can get two, but I can't get the other two.
Yeah.
Type of thing. When they saw we could do 4 corners, they were like, "That's crazy."
And the secret to that was pulling it out the right way.
Yeah.
You know, just when you pull those miters out, you have to take it and kind of bring it out like that, because if you didn't, it would catch the edge and ruin it.
Because the foot was clear, so
Yeah.
they could see that the miter corners were going to be miter, because it was clear.
Right.
You could see everything. When you pulled it out, pulled it back in. I mean, yeah, everybody's just fascinated.
I
Our
wouldn't even-
table was so crowded.
Oh,
Because
all
of
the
that
time,
foot.
all the time. I
Yeah.
can remember even when we would, once the corner was mitered and we'd pull it back into the binder, because that foot was clear, I could even bring the wheel down, and I would even tack right where that corner left off, so it made those miters, and then we would leave threads on there so you could go back and you could whip stitch those corners down if you wanted
If you
to.
wanted
Wow.
to, yeah.
But that product was absolutely amazing. I missed that tremendously. Dad, you got to get Dad.
Is that the only
John.
reason we stopped, was because the machines had changed?
There was a few
No,
other
Yeah,
things.
there were some other reasons.
Some of the other reasons were if Lynn and I could only be at one place at one time. That
Okay.
was the other thing. And there was nothing that we didn't know about it. But, you know, it's like anything else. You're at a show, there's so much excitement involved with what you're showing.
Yeah.
You do those products, and then you get home, and then it's kind of one of those things, out of sight, out of mind, and then you call back 3 minutes. What was that little trick that you did? So
Yeah.
we did videos, but I don't think the videos did
Yeah,
its
it's hard
justice.
to really, to
Yeah.
really demonstrate it on
Yeah,
video.
that was something you had to be there and you have to see. But we're going to come out with again, and we're going to do some other professional videos that shows it a little bit more clearly. But that was absolutely a tremendous product. But let's get into a minute about long arms, okay? So I know one of your passions, and you're incredibly talented. Half your quilts in our shop have been done by you. And I know a lot of times, you know, we're in the shop and we have people come in and they're new to quilting, right? So they can't do free motion quilting. They don't know how to use a long arm and they want to get involved. And as everybody knows that's watching, you know, getting involved with a long arm is an investment, you know, it's a car
Right.
payment.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will come in and say, well, I've spent so many such and such hours and this quilt's going to go to my kids and it's going to be an heirloom and I want the best. Well, everybody's version of the best is different. Well, Lynn happens to be the best around here just because everybody knows who she is. And we're going to let everybody know a little bit about Lynn and where they can find some of her work. And for those of you who don't have a long arm quilter in your area, how to get in touch with Lynn, because this is what she does, and she's extremely talented at it. But let's talk about long
Do you have
arms.
time for it?
Let's go in the long arm room.
Unfortunately, I didn't want to bring one back, but we are going to talk about it verbally. So when you first got introduced to long arms, because you've always been into sewing, so when you first got introduced to long arms, what were some of the challenges, and was it overwhelming to you? Was you look at this big monstrosity and say, man, what am I going to do with this, and how did you learn? So just walk us through the steps of just being introduced to long arm and where you've come from after doing the trade shows to where you are now and how you got there. Kind of give us the ride, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, sure. When I was at the trade shows, I would of course hover around some of the long arms. I always thought they were fascinating, but I was intimidated by it. I'm not going to say it never was.
Yeah.
That's a big machine.
Oh yeah.
And it does a lot of work. And there's a lot to learn. But you remember Mary Lou Knowles.
Yeah, God bless her heart and
Yeah.
rest her soul. Love that lady.
Beautiful lady. She sort of took my hand type of thing, and not only mine, but hundreds and hundreds of other sewers, quilters, piecers, whatnot. But she was always very patient with me, and only did so many shows with her. But she knew that I showed an interest, so she took just a little bit of time, and she let me quilt some of her quilts. So I was always so neat. You know, that was neat for me. But I guess I always did a little free motion on just my standard domestic. That's where it really started, because the sit down was still coming to the table type of thing. They were still working on it and working through some kinks. So I started on my just regular sewing machine, and I remember my husband and I were in the condo, and I only had a spot for it to go behind his recliner. So here I am doing this big king size FSU quilt.
Still don't have mine, by the way. Just for the record.
Okay.
She gave it away.
Yeah, she gave it to my brother.
Yeah.
Sold it.
Hey, next time we come visit, I will steal it. I promise
Maybe
you.
he'll leave it to you
Oh,
when he
no,
passes
won't.
away.
No, he
Yeah.
won't. Nothing Florida State, but he does give me tickets, and he's a very good brother, so don't think that he's not. Sorry,
So
Lynn, go
that's
ahead.
all good. But yeah, that's where I started. Then I moved to the sit down, our Bella, and started working there. And that took some time because, you know, you're moving all 3 pieces. And then when the standard long arm, the 11-foot frame came to the table. I was like, that's it, that's mine, I want it. Pack it up, let's go. It's ready, But again, it took me a long time, and still I feel like I'm still working on certain things. I don't think I'll ever have it 100%. I'm done. I got it all figured out.
That's how you know she's a professional right there, because a lot of people say, oh, I've got it down to a science. I have figured, and I've been in it a lot less than she has. I just know the mechanics behind it. But as far as Lynn goes, when you're doing the quilt, you never stop learning as a long arm professional. There's so much. Let's take it back a notch though, but before we get into a little bit more of those long arms, I want to talk about Sit Down, the Bellisaderi, or any other brand on that market. We had an open house and we sold the used HQ16, so there's other brands out there. So give me some of the features and benefits of why you like the Martelli, but more importantly, what are some of for the people that are watching, there might be somebody watching that's like, man, I would love to get into free motion quilting, long arming. Well, I use my domestic machine now, but I want to invest in a sit down, or I want to invest in a robotic long arm. But starting with the sit down, what are some of the drawbacks? What are some of the issues that people have? And how does Martelli set the tone and make the stage a little bit different moving forward for people to be able to do free motion quilting sitting down? Let's start with that one.
Okay. Well, I mean, we do have a retail store, and we have the sit down, and we have the standard. And I've helped people just come in, and not only myself, but other staff members have helped and just let them sit and play.
Right.
Not only play on that one, but you have to make an appointment to play on the other one because it's just a little more involved. But there is a difference between the two, and one of them for me is the tightness, because standard long arm, you have your leaders, you have tension, so your quilt's going to feel different. You're not going to have that same tightness on the sit down. I'm not going to say it feels like a blanket, but it just doesn't have that taut, you know what I mean, type of thing. And some people prefer that, and some people, if you do more work, it just, there's definitely a difference between the two. Not only price, but it's you can sit down and work. You can sit down with the other long arm too, but
because you can bring a chair.
Yeah,
they've got those saddle stools and everything.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, do these get high enough?
Yeah,
for
yeah,
them?
they do.
Those
They're
get
actually really
nice.
good.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Talking about sit down long arms, I remember when I first started, I tell people like this, and this is just a Dave Martelli first experience. So when I first started learning how to do free motion quilting, it was on a robotic long arm, of course, but I would do the free motion without the robotics. So when I sat down on a sit down like the Bellisaderi and I started to work, and I was like, something doesn't feel right here.
Yeah, it's a different.
So
because you're having to
You're
hold on
doing
to
the
the
work.
fabric, where a long arm it's tight.
Well,
just
it's
like
not
she
even
said.
that. For me, it was, moving the machine is like, if you want to go from point A to point B, say we're not even talking about long arm, say I'm walking from here to the front door, right? It's like, I can walk forward and I can get from here to that front door, or I can turn around and I can walk backwards and I can still get to that front door. So moving the fabric to me was like walking backwards because I started moving the machine.
Right.
So when you move the machine as comparison to fabric, it's like doing the same thing but two completely different ways.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're learning everything backwards. So I learned everything by using machine. So it took a while for like Feather's example, because it's a backwards motion moving the fabric. But I will tell you this, learning from the long arm without the robotics from the very beginning, and then moving down to where you didn't have the leaders and you didn't have those poles to keep it taut, and then trying to hold all three pieces of fabric. I remember at the very beginning selling hoops and selling the palm paddles, and I had not really moved the fabric before. So when I was selling this, I was given the features and benefits, and there were other people, they go, well, I have, and I'm not mentioning products, folks, so I don't want you to think I'm bashing anybody, but I'm just telling you my experience. So I had people come up and they'd say, well, I love your product, but I already have the halo. So I'm thinking, okay, cool, they have a similar product. Well, at one time, I was at a show, I turned my name tag backwards, as you always do when you're going to look at other products that are similar related. And I went and checked out the halo, and I noticed that the halo was open-ended on one side.
Yeah.
So when I first tried to move the fabric with my hands in all three pieces, nothing was cooperating. So I needed something to hold them, especially for a bigger project, such as a quilt, or a larger wall hanging, or something to that nature. So when I tried to use my hands, I'm like, oh, this isn't working, right? So I used our products and it worked, but I wanted to know about my competition. So when I went to check out that halo and I would hold it down, it would hold it, not as well as ours, but it held it.
A little bit.
But the problem was when I would move it, because it was not one complete circle or a complete piece, it would what's the word I'm looking for? It would flex. And so as it flexed when I was moving it, it would cause the fabric to gather or pucker on one side. So even though they had the halo, it gave me so much more confidence being able to sell our hoops because our hoops, and that was one of the, let's talk about the hoops just 1 second. I'm gonna let Joe talk about one of the most ingenious parts about it, but I'll mention it and then I'll let her go into detail. See, with our hoop, we have a complete circle, but the one thing that we are able to do, because ours are made on a CNC machine, is we have an opening. But at the bottom of that opening, you're gonna see it's still connected.
Yeah.
So there is no gathering. But Joe, if you wanna talk about that a little bit, go ahead.
Well, and I'll tell you, because we've made this for other companies, and they've left this open
Yeah.
because they feel that it's easier to get your needle through. You are going to have to lift your needle to get it inside. But just like David's saying, having that full flatness or solid aspect of it, it's holding all of your layers. What he's talking about, the gathering, even though you had those halos with whatever company it is, another key though, David, was that it was almost like a rubber underneath, so it doesn't hold it
well, for sure.
like the Martelli Magic. I mean, this really, our non-slip is the Martelli Magic. So it's a combination of our non-slip aspect, but the whole solid aspect of it though too, so that when you are trying to free motion quilt, you have complete control to sit there and move around. A lot of times people are using gloves.
Yeah, that's what I started out with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
And nothing
came
wrong
out
with
We
it.
later.
didn't have.
Yeah.
I mean, how long
Nothing-
have we been making
Oh,
these
probably
now?
about 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, let me.
Yeah.
I'm going to quiz you real quick, Joe, and see if
Okay.
you remember this. And you probably will know, but I'm going to quiz you anyways. So I've had this question proposed to me often, and a lot of people don't get it. They think they know the answer, but they really don't. So why is it that we have a 12-inch and an 8-inch? What's the entire reason for the 12 and the 8-inch? Do you know? Do you know?
Actually, we have an 8-inch and an 11-inch.
11-inch, sorry, 11-inch. I call it a 12-inch, but 11 and 8-inch. Go ahead. What's the difference?
Honestly, and maybe I'm wrong, but two things. One, it's got to be the throat, because so many people have a different size throat. It really depends on your machine. In fact, Al and I were just talking about it this morning. An 11-inch isn't going to fit under every single throat. But at the same time, let's just say the throat of the machine isn't a problem, okay? Now it's going to determine really what size of project are you working on, because right now I only have this much space to work on, which is pretty tiny. So to me, I would prefer to have the 11-inch so I have more control and more space to be able to continue to quilt without having to constantly pick it up. So.
That was actually a really good answer. And the reason why that's so important is because sometimes, even if you have a little bit smaller, let's say I'm working with the 8-inch throat, right? So I have the 8-inch hoop, right? But I'm not always going to use the 8-inch hoop with the 8-inch throat. The throat actually has really little to do with it, because the hoops are designed in such a way they're so easy to pick up and move. You can pick it up and move as much as you want.
Right.
So once you start getting into that bigger throat size is the projects. If I'm working on a king size quilt, do I want this much surface area to move that quilt, or do I want this much surface area? The larger surface area you have to move, the heavier the quilt is, the easier it makes it. At least that's been my experience.
Well, the problem too, though, David, is that, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I let her do the quilting. So you still, even if you have a small throat, you can only do so much surface that smaller that is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
You know?
sometimes the smaller is good for more detailed.
Yes, I
Quilting.
forget that. Yep,
Yeah,
you're
a lot
absolutely
of this
right.
is really good for a very intricate detail.
Because you're moving it so much.
You're
and-
moving so much, yeah, and you want to stay focused. But the larger one, I could see definitely doing stippling or just a little more easy flowing type work.
Yeah.
I can see.
Meandering.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
while I'm on the road, because I do so many like private events and stuff, and I always actually bring people up. When I start talking about free motion, I pull someone out of the audience to come up and let her just try everything, because they really are.
We like to touch, feel, and
And it's
very
completely
visual.
different, in how you do it. So.
Right.
But I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later, because you kind of said to her, what she likes to do and the difference. And here's a question: so do you do the robotics, or does it kind of depend on your customer and what you're doing?
Yeah, it depends on the customer, but really the robotics is just very affordable. More and more people have gone that route. As a long armor and other long armors, I mean, it's cheating, but
That's a really good point. And
People love it.
I want to
Yeah,
mention, not to cut you off, but I want to mention this while I'm thinking about it. And one of the key things that she said is the robotics are really affordable. When you start getting into other brands, I'm not sure so much if that's the case. You can get up start about $40,000 on some of the brands. I'm not going to mention names, but the reason why they have to do that is because those manufacturers, they have wholesale accounts. Those wholesalers have to make money. So what they do is if it's 40, they're going to drop it down to 20, and then let their wholesalers make money too. The great thing about Martelli is we don't have to, and I'm going to get into more detail about this, but we don't have to get wholesale accounts. One of the biggest problems, I don't care who you are, what brand, what make, what model, the number one problem that you have with long arms is timing. And the reason why you have timing issues is because there's no feed dogs that are consistent with the movement of the fabric. So when you move it like this, if you move it a little bit too fast, when that needle goes in the fabric, you might pull it out a little bit too fast. So you're bending the needle's not going in the hook at the proper place at the proper proper place at the proper time. But one of the things that Martelli's has done on their long arm, and this is why I always tell anybody, if you're ever in the market for a long arm, you would be doing yourself an injustice or a disservice if you at least didn't look at the Martelli first. And I'm going to tell you why. And I did a video on this a couple months back, almost a year ago. So everybody else in the industry, they have a 1/4-inch drive shaft, okay? And if you're not mechanically inclined, stay with me. So everybody, if you're looking at the drive shaft, here's the drive shaft. Here's the drive shaft looking at me. Everybody else in the world has a 1/4-inch, okay? So it's about that thick in diameter. The Martelli has a 1/4-inch, so ours is about that thick in diameter. So here's the relevancy, right? I don't care how well the machine is made, the machine has to be balanced. I don't care whose it is. It's called balancing. You know, you have balancing, you have timing. So every machine in the world also has vibration. So without feed dogs, you're constantly doing this, and the vibration of the machine will loosen the nut up on the timing. Now I'm going to explain that to you, and it's super simple and easy to understand this, right? Everybody in the world you've heard at some point in time in your life, righty tighty, lefty loosey, right? They say that to remind you when you tighten something, which direction, and when you loosen something, direction. Now, with the old rotary cutters, the non-Martellis, do you remember when you used to cut and you used to cut and you used to cut? What do you have to stop and do? Tighten the bolt up, right? Because the vibration of that rolling of the blade would loosen that bolt. Well, it's the same exact concept when you're talking about long arm quilting, right? So watch how intricate, and I'm going to kind of make this really, really quick, and for more detail you can call me and get involved with Lynn or whatever to find out more about it. But to make a long story short, when they set the timing, you have what you call a hook, and I'm going to show you real quick how timing works, okay? So the needle goes through the fabric, then you have a hook. That hook comes around, it makes a loop, and when that needle is on the way up, that hook goes around the indention of that little needle. It's called perfect timing. So it's about a hair, the thickness of your head away from the scarf of that needle. It makes a loop, it grabs that thread, it makes it tight. Now, you're talking about 1,400 stitches a minute up to 2,200 stitches a minute. So how precise does that have to be? Now, here's what I'm getting at. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, right? So every machine in the world, no matter how good no matter how good the timing is or the balancing is, you have a little vibration, right? So over a period of time, if you have righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, like everybody in the world has, and you set your timing by bringing that hook around to dead center of that scarf, and once you have it perfectly, what they do is they crank it down, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, right? So over a period of time, what does that vibration do to that nut that's holding that hook in place? Yeah. It loosens it. Sure. So once you loosen that, the machine goes, and you call up and you say, hey, you know, I'll give you a prime example. You go to a dealership and you buy a long arm and you say, hey, Johnny, I'm ready to pull that trigger. I'm going to buy that long arm that you showed me last year. And he said, okay, and he writes you up, right? Gives you a year warranty. All good. You get it home, you start using it. Let's say it's about 16 months, 18 months later, right? Going along, everything's perfect, timing's still perfect, and all of a sudden, that vibration loosened that nut up just a little too much and goes, first you do say, hey, Johnny, thanks for that machine, it's working great, but I don't know, something weird happened. I was just going right along, and all of a sudden, it just stopped working. And so first thing he tells you, asks you a series of questions, and he already knows the answer to this because every tech does. And he goes, well, sounds like you lost your timing. So call your local dealer. So you call your local dealer, and your local dealer comes up, and first thing he says, okay, that's going to be $300, $400. Especially with long arms, it's a little bit more expensive. Well, long story short, what happened is that vibration loosened that nut up. It caused the timing to go kaput. So you get an expert that does this for a living come in. He takes a magnifying glass. He opens the machine up. He hand wheels the needle down. He sees it right where it needs to be, and he tightens it back up again. But here's the problem. Once you lose the timing the very first time on your sewing machine, it gets easier and easier to lose the timing the second time because it's already lost it the first time, right? So here's where Martelli's a little different, right? So remember I told you they have a 1/4-inch drive shaft and we have a 1/2-inch drive shaft. So we already our drive shaft is already quarter inch larger than everybody else's. But here's the ingenious part of John Martelli. The threads on our drive shaft are reversed, right? So if we know that if you have righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, and we know that your timing has to be with pinpoint precision, and we know over a period of time that vibration loosens that nut up, okay, that's everybody else. Now let's go to Martelli's. If we have a 1/2 inch drive shaft and we have reverse threads, so once our timing is set, if your vibration loosens the timing or loosens the nut on righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, it's opposite. What does the vibration do to the opposite? It keeps it tight.
Yeah.
So Martelli is the only make and model machine in the world that has a 1/2 inch drive shaft with reverse threads on it. Just, you wonder why our rotary cutter, how many times have you heard somebody say, I can't get the Martelli blade out of there? And they're like, follow the arrow. We did the same thing with our rotary cutter, so you don't have to stop and constantly tighten up. We took that same exact concept and we used it with our long arm sewing machine. So unless you put a needle through a template, you're not going to have timing issues. And I've tell you, laugh at me, but I've heard people putting needles through templates and still not losing their timing. I had one lady put her needle in backwards and said she had to slow it down. She didn't know it was in backwards at the time, by the way. She didn't know this until after. But she said, Dave, I kid you not. I was having a problem with your long arm. I couldn't get the stitch. She said I had to slow the machine all the way down. It did the entire quilt, and she had the needle in backwards.
Wow.
That tells you the type of integrity when you set that timing. Now, she had to slow the machine way down. It wasn't until she got with Brian, and it wasn't until about 2 months later, she goes, you're not going to believe I had the needle in backwards. So to be able to do an entire quilt, of course, it was at a slower speed with the needle in backwards. That ought to tell you about the engineering behind the Martelli.
Absolutely.
So I'm sorry to be a little bit long-winded about that, but I think that's really
It's good to
important
know.
feature
Yeah.
that I don't know if you even knew that.
Yeah.
But that's important. Okay, so let's get back into long arm because this is about you, not really about Martelli. So you started long arming. How did you start your business? Like, and how many people? Because there's a lot of people out there that probably want to do what you do. They might not have the talent level.
Yeah.
They might not have the skill level, or they might not have the clientele. So how long did it take you before the work that you were able to do was good enough for a clientele base, and how long did it take you to build that clientele base up?
Well, I had a really sweet customer. Her name is Beth Wallace, and she is out of town, but she was a snowbird. But she is loyal, a very loyal Martelli customer.
Yeah, I think I know that.
And she's had all these king-size quilts, but she didn't want all the extras, and she knew I was new, and she let me stipple all of these quilts. I mean, she had several. She still ships them for me. She's moved.
Oh, wow.
And I just
We're going to
stippled.
cover that in a minute.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, but now I don't stipple all of hers anymore, but she was one of the customers that she did. She just looked at me and says, you know what, go for it. And I was like, wow. But I mean, I played and practiced, here and there, because I started on my, because when I started long arming, I didn't have Cubot. I didn't have robotics.
That's what I thought.
I had the old, lock them up and roll them up type car. I didn't have
That's
any
what we had.
fancy.
Well, was
right?
that, was that the only way, right?
Yeah, it was the only way.
I remember when we first saw them, it sounded like a rocket engine. We had the dual motors,
yeah.
like,
Yeah,
we've
loud.
come so far,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
far.
Mhm.
But go ahead, I'm sorry.
But no, that's okay. But anyway, so she let me stipple, and so that's how I mastered stippling, was her having the patience and just braveness to let me do it.
Good word. Good
She was a
word.
very-
As she bring her quilt, she's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's real pretty, Lynn.
Oh, yeah. No, but she was very sweet, and then a couple others came in, and I did ruler work. I started doing more ruler work. I felt like I was more comfortable with that type
Is
of
that a
thing.
practice thing you need? Because I'm asking because I don't know this.
Yeah, I mean, you
'Cause I
still
never-
need to practice with that.
So
too, 'cause
ruler
there's
work
so
is-
many people out there, right? Yeah, that.
Would it
ruler can do
behoove
different
people
things.
that are watching right now and say, you know what, I love doing ruler work. I'm a free motion quilting kind of gal or a guy for that matter, and I want to do more ruler work. Would it behoove them to develop some rulers and say, hey, make this ruler for me, Martelli? And
Yeah, of
do you think
course.
is that? Do you have a lot of different rulers that you use?
Yeah, I have y'all's. Yeah, I use yours. I should have probably bought some
So,
in, but
okay, and again, because
I'm learning some,
I don't
too.
quilt. I piece, but I don't quilt.
yeah.
But so you can use a ruler on the stand-up.
Yeah,
Like-
they have a table. They have
We
a
have a table that attaches to the machine.
So
Okay.
there's a little
Yeah.
where the throat is, and this is for most long arms. I'm speaking for. I'm not sure about
So
all of them.
all long arms will have some type of table.
Yeah, so
Right.
there's about a 1/4 inch lip where the needle goes into the throat plate,
Okay.
and that lip is in a shape of it's a shape like that, and then the table has a shape like that. So you slide the table underneath the needle, and it sets and locks in
Okay.
place, and then you screw it down. So now
So
you
that
have
way
a
you're
little,
getting a hard
you have
surface
yeah,
underneath.
You have
Okay.
a little platform that you can use for
Right.
ruler work. So
Okay.
That's why I was curious. Do you currently do a lot of ruler work for your customers now, or do they like the robotics?
Right now it's robotics. I mean, I've done a couple.
Is it because it's variety though?
The variety, they like the clean finish of it. They like the affordable, and they like all the different options. I mean, there's thousands of choices for the robotics. You know, I don't have like 50. I mean, you have access to whatever. They want.
Yeah,
and I
thousands.
tell them where I buy my stuff from, and I just go, you know, but the bulk of mine just want me to choose it. They want me to pick
Really?
it out. Yeah.
I'm going to show
Yeah.
everybody before we're over, and I forgot to grab it, shoot the dinosaur quilt that she just did. Absolutely amazing. But when we get to the end,
That
we're going
was
to
a
show
fun
some
one.
samples.
Yeah, it's fun. And I did this one back here.
Yeah, you did. You did a lot. Yeah, you can see the spools of thread. We're going to get into
I know,
that in a
that's
minute
so
because I do
cute.
want to see all your work and how crazy good it is. But for people out there that are wanting to get in this, how do you know how to charge people? Like, do you just wake up and go, oh, I think I'm going to charge $150 today? How do you typically know how much to charge a customer?
Well, I try to follow suit with everybody else out there, but then, but that's when I was starting. But now I've been in it for 15 years. I've been quilting for customers since 2007.
Wow.
So my price range might be different because of the experience I have.
Yes,
Sure.
I was just
So
about to ask you that.
Yeah, I can't give the same prices as someone that just started out
Yeah.
a year.
It's like a hairdresser. You
Yeah.
know, one person might charge you, you know, $100, but you may go to someone else who's $200, but
Yeah.
you're getting the quality.
You're getting right.
Yeah.
Well,
You're
so
getting their knowledge and experience, and
So if I'm new and I walk up and I say, or you're a customer, you walk up to me, I'm long arm, and you say, okay, I've got a king size quilt. How much are you going to charge me to do this? And I want this design. If I say $50, probably should rock.
Yeah,
Probably should rock.
exactly.
And I could give you some horror stories about that, non-quilting related. But yeah, so keep in mind when you get these prices, the majority of the time, sometimes you might get somebody that's a little bit higher in price, but take in mind their experience level.
Yeah.
You're not going to see those mistakes on those quilts
Right.
because I know a lot of people that are newbies. Not everybody, but there's lots of people that when they first start, they're learning. They're learning.
yeah,
Yeah.
And if you don't want to take that chance, or if you want to see how someone does, one of my suggestions would be is take one of your quilts that you're not so passioned about. Maybe it's
yeah, a
not
lot
an
of people
heirloom.
will start out with me when I was starting. They'd give me just a simple like little 4-inch block.
Yeah,
and,
here you
know,
go.
yeah, here you go. Test you with that one. You
And
know?
then they do it nicely, trying
yeah.
to make it not so you don't know that they're looking at your work. But
yeah. Which
yeah,
is
that's-
fine.
Yeah,
I get
no, I get it.
You know,
I
it's
get it.
expensive. This is not a
No,
you know,
yeah.
this is expensive.
Absolutely.
Hobby, you know.
So
passion.
how do you figure out like when you do your? I don't know if this is something you want to discuss. And if
No,
not,
I
that's
mean, my
okay.
prices are all over the map.
Okay.
I don't, you know, they just are. I mean, you've got some that just, they don't want a lot of work. They want it done, but they have so many, so they're trying to figure out, you know, how I can do it and get them all done, you know, but
Without
yeah.
costing them an arm and a
Right,
leg.
right. So, and I'll show them my options. I'll show you 4 different prices. I say I can stipple it. I start at 0.015, and I can just stipple it, just do, because maybe their fabric is just so busy, they're not going to see my work anyways.
Right.
So why invest in all
Yeah.
of that quilting if you're not going to really see what I've done? Unless the back is, you know, a contrast, then they can see my work. So then it's like
Yeah.
a reversible quilt.
Right.
So then, you know, and I'll show them that option too.
Which I'll show you on that dinosaur quilt.
Yeah, exactly is what I did on that one. But then I can go up to all the way to 0.09 because that's a custom quilt, and they want so much work done to it. And I have pictures of my phone, but it was for a wedding, and I did like 6 different like robotic type motifs for blocks. But then the rest of it was either ruler or free motion. So I
it just
charged a
depends.
bunch. I mean, I
Yeah.
can charge for like the norm is, you know, like a queen. A queen can be 135 all the way up to 450.
Wow.
I mean, that's the range. It just depends on what they want. Depends on the design, depends on how packed it is, depends on how much thread I've used, how many needles I've used.
Yeah, we're going to get
True.
into thread and
You know,
needles
Now, are
in
you
a
doing
minute.
their binding as well?
Some, yeah.
Only some.
Yeah,
So then
some
that
just
would be
don't like
another-
it.
that
That's
would be another
fee.
expense.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So there's going to be people watching the show today, but there's going to be people watching the show for the next probably year. You know, when
Yeah.
they come across the show and they, you know, like, you know, I'm not pleased with the person in my area, or I don't
A lot
have
of people
somebody in my
retire,
area.
they can't find them.
That's my
Right.
Yeah,
point.
there's a
So
lot of people retire.
if somebody wants to get with you that's watching, first of all, is there a place that they can see your work? Maybe your Facebook page, and if secondly, if they want to contact you and they're watching this at another time, then you know what, I want to try Lynn Martelli. You know, with the last name, she's probably pretty good. How can they get a hold of you? How can they talk to you? How can they see your
Darn
work? Tell everybody out there how they can at least find out more about you and what you do and how you do it, and maybe samples.
Yeah. Now I take a lot of work here at the Martelli Quilting and Sewing Store. I do have a Facebook page called Quilts by Sloan. That's one of my family names. That's how my business name came.
So Quilts by Sloan?
Mm-hmm.
Quilts by Sloan, SLOAN. Quilts by Sloan on Facebook.
Yeah, and then you can call me. I have to admit I'm old school. I like the phone. Just call me. You know, I'm all about the phone. I don't deal with emails. I just don't. I don't want to spend time on my computer. I want to talk to you and keep doing other stuff.
Yeah.
How did the process, so if there's somebody's watching and they, you know what, I want to try Lynn out, or I heard she's pretty good, but I want to be able to pick my own pattern, how does that process go if somebody's sending you quilts from a distance?
Yeah, I'll just tell them you can get Urban Elements, TK Quilting, Creative Stitching. I mean, there's so many companies out
Well,
there.
mention a few more, because, and the reason why I say, and I want to be clear with these folks, because there's someone that might be thinking, hey, I'm going to go check out the patterns, and if they see one I like, then I'm going to call Lynn.
Yeah, and that's fine
So,
too, because
yes.
I can download any PLT file.
So give them like 3 locations that they can go to see exact patterns that you can do. So in case somebody's watching and they want you to do a quilt, they can already go look at the patterns, so they can already have half the work done for you by the time they reach you. Give me 3 spots that they can go.
Well, they can get a Quilts by Sloan, and they can see a lot of the patterns I've already done on a quilt. But Urban Elements is a top. It's just a wonderful company that I've been buying from for years. Very popular company. TK Quilting, I like them. That company as well. It has more of a, I don't want to say grandmother style, but it has its own quilting patterns that sort of ages your quilt in a
So
in
like
a good way.
Older,
Yeah,
like the normal
yeah.
traditional type.
Or it's just it's sort of old school. I just like it. It's just more antique.
Okay.
More just, I don't know how to
Not
describe
so
it.
modern. Like you're
Yeah,
not going to
right.
see like the
Right.
bobbins.
And it almost looks like you could have free motioned it.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that website. And then there's Creative Stitches, but I mean you can just Google free motion, or edge to edge quilting. If you just Google that, all these companies will pop up.
And just
Wow.
for those of you that are new watching, when it's edge to edge, I'm assuming she's
Yeah.
talking about it starts from here and
From
it
left
goes
to right,
from
or-
left to right. So
yeah.
that's kind of what my assumption was.
Yeah.
This is really good information that I want to get into too, because like I said, there might be a lot of people that are wanting to start and not know where to start.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about thread, and we're going to get into projects. I know you brought a project. I want to show that. I want to show this one too. That's perfect. And I want to show that dinosaur quilt just
You
so I
want me to
can
go get-
see some of your work.
want me to go get the
Yeah, if you
dinosaur?
can.
Where is it?
Yeah, ask if you don't mind. Ask Shannon. I should have grabbed it. I just
Okay.
wasn't thinking, but Shannon will know where it's at.
Okay.
So let's talk about thread use. And I know I've heard everything from even if you have, let's say you have a Gamble or an HQ16 or Martelli or anything of that nature. I have heard, and I don't know how true this is, you could have one Gamble that likes certain thread and another Gamble that doesn't like that thread.
Right.
And then another Gamble that does and another one that doesn't.
Yeah, I know. I hear that
So
too.
is that something that you can kind of expound on a little bit about long arms? Is each machine specific to the type of thread they like? And if so, how do you determine that? And what kind of thread do you like? And then we're going to talk about bobbin and bobbin tension.
Okay. I use quite a few varieties of thread. I use Glide as a polyester thread a lot. I also use their bobbins. I brought the Glide thread into our retail store off of W Street before we moved here, and I've been using Glide thread, gosh, for a very long time.
What'd you think about the new Glide cotton?
I like the Glide cotton.
Did that seem to work really well
yeah,
too?
it does.
So would you say if somebody's on a domestic machine and they've already pieced all their quilt, now they want to do some free motion quilting on their domestic machine, would you recommend the Glide poly, or would you recommend the Glide cotton?
It's preference.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
so
preference.
Well, the look of the cotton.
Yeah,
so if
yeah,
you're done with a
this-
quilt, you want the sheen, you're going to go with the poly.
Yeah, mhm.
So the
This-
strength doesn't matter.
No.
Okay,
Yeah,
very
it's
cool.
really preference, because I've another store that I quilt for. They prefer cotton. That's all they want. So I use Orfill for them. That's all they want me to use, and occasionally I'll throw in a Glide just because either I forgot or the customer really doesn't care. But I do have specific customers. That's all they want is cotton, and they like Orfill.
Yeah.
So and then I wind the bobbins for them because they want the cotton also on the bottom as well.
Have you noticed a difference? And I can't wait for Dad's bobbin winder to come out. That's going to be
gonna
amazing.
nice. That will be
But
nice.
since it's not out yet, let's talk about bobbins really quickly. Let's talk about the Magna bobbins, and let's talk about the regular bobbins, and let's talk about the bobbin tension.
Yeah.
And just tell us a little bit about your experience that you have with, you know, your standard bobbins and then the Magna bobbins, and then how important that tension is.
Yeah. Oh, tension's huge. And I've got another quilt like this one here. It's a challenge for me to put one color thread on the top and a separate, different color on the back. That's a challenge for me. I want to, that's what I really prefer. Every blue moon, I might have one that I can't. I have to use the same thread top and bottom, but my goal is to use 2 different threads. It's part of my,
That's like you're the
when I
bricklayer
stick
that puts
out.
that brick
Yeah,
on backwards so
uh-huh.
everybody knows that you're stamped.
I want to stick out because there's a lot of people that won't do that. And it's a tension thing. It's all about tension. It's also about wrapping your bobbin correctly. And
So talk about winding your bobbin correctly, and is there a number? And listen, folks, I'm learning, so these few questions I'm asking, I honestly don't know as well.
okay, yeah,
So,
go
so
ahead.
you already know where I'm going with this
Uh-huh,
one? Okay,
yeah.
so when you put that, is there a standard number for a bobbin tension? Is there a number that they can start with, or where you want to be? Because I do know that we sell a bobbin tensioner with ours.
And that came after I started. See, the thing is, I started when we didn't have all the bells and whistles.
Ah.
So then the bells and whistles
you should
come
be
to
darn
play.
good then.
So I'm like, I don't know how to use that. Because I'm a lock 'em up and roll 'em up girl. I didn't grow up with the electric buttons to hit all the locking. You know what I mean? It was everything I did was manual.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's why I always say lock 'em up and roll 'em up because I didn't have the electric car.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have an electric long arm. So, but yeah, so I had to learn to wind the bobbin the same rate all by myself. So
there's no magic number.
for me, I have no magic number, but there is.
There
It's
is a magic
120
number.
for the thing for the or whatever. I mean, Brian. I'll occasionally call Brian because someone will ask me. I'm like, shoot, I don't know.
I'm good because I'm good.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
I just figured it out manually. I didn't have all the bells and whistles.
Well, hey, that ought to tell you something, though. If she knows it manually, that ought to tell you how good she is. Because
Yeah.
a lot of people have to use cheater methods
I'll
for different things.
Tell you another thing I do because I do use so many different threads. Is I have 5 bobbins. Each bobbin is used for a different thread company. Like I have Glide, that bobbin's for Glide only. So that way that tension.
You mean the actual bobbin?
Mm-hmm.
So
I have 5 different bobbins. I
metal
don't just
bobbins
use,
or?
Yeah, just our bobbin that comes with our long arm. Just
So
the case,
so it's not about the
case.
bobbin though. It's about how you wind it, right, and stuff like that. Or is it the actual makeup of the bobbin that
Both.
matters? Okay.
Really?
Both, yeah,
No
yeah,
clue,
both.
no
yeah.
clue.
So then I have another one that I pre-wind, that are pre-wound by me, the metal one. So that bobbin's, set for just that one. And then I have my Aurifil that I just use that bobbin for that line of thread. So I don't have to constantly I still test, on the side to make sure my tension's right. But that relieves so much headache when I have 5 separate bobbins because I'm using 5 different types of thread companies.
One big question. Does my brother spoil you?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about your quilting room. Listen to this, folks. Listen to this. Tell everybody about your quilting room.
Oh, the only reason why I have this
And the
quilting-
view, and the view, and the view. The quilting room and the view.
Well, Jim, we all grew up with basements.
Yeah.
We moved to Florida, you don't have a basement anymore,
Yeah.
so we built a 3rd floor. And we call it our upman. It's just a silly little joke on my end. And so we had that for the kids to play, they played their toys.
And I
the
still play
TV,
toys up there.
Yeah. And their, little ping pong table, that kind of stuff. Well, then they grew up, and that's when I was able to bring the long arm up there because I knew I wouldn't have kids around it, and they wouldn't be up there. They're off doing their own thing. So that 1,700 square foot upment became my long arm room.
It is beautiful,
It
too.
is,
And if you
uh,
look out the window, there's a beautiful picture of the bay. They live right on the water. Their house is gorgeous.
That's awesome.
And my brother's such a snob, he has fake grass in the backyard, so he doesn't have to mow. Fake grass, folks. Fake grass. It looks
Oh,
manic.
you know you would have it if you
Oh,
could.
in a second, if I could
Oh my
afford
goodness,
it.
Saturdays
I
are
think
great.
I think I'm having him
We
trying to
just-
sneak me putting on his will, then just off him sometime.
That's an
Gorgeous
engineer's
house.
mind right
Yeah,
there.
that is
exactly.
strictly right. He's
He
an
deserves
engineer,
it. That
so-
guy works his rear end off, and he deserves everything he has. I'm going to tell you that right now. His work ethic. If I could only do half of what that guy does, I would be extremely satisfied with
You
myself.
work hard,
He's
too.
he's a hard worker. Okay, let's see. So bobbin tension, I think we covered that. Let's talk about, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, but I want to get your take on this. Have you used other long arms before, and to what extent? And since you've used other long arms, give me the difference.
Don't tell me.
Probably not, but given the difference, if you had to give me 3 or 4 different major differences of the Martelli long arm, and I can do with it, if I had another guest, I wouldn't be able to do this, folks, but because she is a Martelli and she has a Martelli, I'm able to ask these questions. Give us 3 or 4 of the different key features and benefits of the Martelli long arm in comparison to every other long arm in the world, because all the other long arms are the same. It might be a different color, it might be a different shape, it might be a different size, but it's identical. It's a long arm that stitches on a plate. I don't want to give too much away, so I'm gonna give that question over to you. Give me 3 or 4 features and benefits that are different.
The crazy thing is the Martelli long arm's all I know.
I know. So you've never really.
I've never touched
Okay.
another one.
So I'm gonna just say just really quickly, only
wish
because
I-
I've used
yeah.
every other
You
long
haven't
arm.
like one.
Nope.
No?
I just looked at him from afar and just said, because I knew we'd bring one to the table, so why
and-
touch anybody else's?
Oh man, and I've always told everybody, Martelli will never bring something to market unless there's a need for it. Like we would have never brought a long arm to the market if we didn't. Remember all that explanation I just gave you about righty tighty, lefty loosey, how we set our timing and all that. If every other long arm in the world set their timing the way we did, we would have never came out with a long arm. But because we did that, it sets our long arm apart. It makes it so much different that we never have timing issues. What is the number? I'll ask both of you. What is the number one problem with every long arm in the world, no matter what? What's the number one problem?
Yeah.
Timing.
Yes,
Timing.
yeah.
And anybody that has a long arm will tell you that. So the reason why we developed one is to stop the timing issues that everybody has. So that's one of the things that I'd like.
I think ours looks so much better though too.
Well, that's what I was going to. I'll
know?
let you touch on
Yeah,
that, Joe.
frame,
Give me
too.
the
Well,
visuals.
that's what I
Yeah, it's
mean.
the
It's
frame.
like, you know, I mean,
Yeah, too.
obviously, you know, I'm on the road all the time, and you know, you have these companies that, like you were saying, $40,000 to $70,000, and I'm looking at it and going, why? You
Yeah.
know, and then you see these others that are, honestly, it's just. And I'm not going to say they're junk
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't touched them. I don't know,
Yeah.
but the way they look and the thing to me, if I want something in my quilting room, I want it to
It
be
look nice.
appealing,
Yes, I like
you
the-
know.
mhm.
And whether you have the Bella, the sit down, or the stand up, I mean, they're both very gorgeous machines.
Yeah, and they're
you
beefy.
know?
I like
Well,
the
Dad used to always
Astro.
say, how do you say it? I'll try to, and I can't even talk like my dad like I used to. Dave, we want it to look like furniture. That's what he would say.
And it's true though, because so many of them are just like these metal bars, and then they're sitting on like a wobbly table.
Yeah.
Okay, so that alone, how are you going to long arm if something's like all
Right, right.
wobbling
Shaking.
around on you
Mhm.
too?
And then you got to go behind the machine, so you need to
Yes.
put the thing right in the middle of your living room.
Yeah.
And that's one. I'm glad you said that, Joe. That's one of the huge things that I love about Martelli. The Martelli, because it's suspended from a beam and not sitting on a table, you can scooch that about a foot off of your wall, and you never have to go behind your
Yeah.
machine
Yeah,
because
it's very-
everything's done in front.
I never go
So
behind the machine.
there's no reason to.
No.
So everybody else in the world, they need a minimum of a 12 by 15 dedicated room so they can put the long arm smack dab in the middle. We only need a 10-foot by 12-foot room, and not only can you put that long arm in the room, you can also put your sewing table there and your pressing station in
Yeah.
there. So you can use, if you have I'm going to tell you like this, if you have a regular standard home and you have an extra bedroom in that home, you can buy a Martelli stand-up long arm. You cannot do that with any other make or model on the market because of how it has to be used. So that's
Well,
another great
if they
point.
do, that's the only thing they're using in
Yeah.
the room. You
And
know,
even
ladies,
then, they still got to, it's like,
well, that's right.
you know.
I constantly talk to customers that maybe they don't have our cutting table yet, and so they're like, "Oh, I really want it, but I have a long arm, and you just don't understand. I can't even barely fit into my room."
That was my point
you know?
in case. I
Yeah.
remember probably 7 out of every 10 long arms that I sell is not even that our machine's better, not even that the timing's better, not even that it looks cooler, is because they want to use their room
Yeah.
for everything.
Yeah.
And buying a Martelli long arm is one of those great benefits that you can have, because when you buy a Martelli La Cresta long arm, you can still use your room for sewing and pressing, and you don't have to have multiple rooms now. It's one room, one location,
Yeah.
and everything is set up where it's a step away or 2 steps away.
Now,
So that's a huge
here's
point.
the only bad thing, though, and I was just talking to someone in Idaho today about this. We don't really like to deliver as far as Idaho and Washington. So, You know, that would be the only bad thing, I think, with our long
Well,
arms.
that's coming through a change too. I don't know if you know that. Did you know that?
We have to. No.
Okay, so this is brand new. I probably shouldn't be telling everybody this. My mom's probably gonna kick me, but we have a brand new long arm. Remember I said, Martelli will never bring something to market unless there's a need for it, right? I've said that a million times. Well, now, since we've been in the long arming world for so long, my dad has found better ways and better things that nobody has on their machine. So it took us a little while, like Lynn was saying, it took me a little while to learn my long arm, but now, you know, it's the same thing with Martelli's. We've had our long arm on the market for so long, now we know what everybody does when they long arm, so we found not like things, but brand new things that nobody has, and one of them is shipping is a big issue with everybody.
Very.
So everybody has a 12-foot pole or a 15-foot pole. All of our poles and all of our rails now have been, on the new one, go down to 4-foot sections.
Oh, wow.
And they're made with turnbuckles, so now we can ship everything to, I could ship something to California very inexpensively now because everything's so light
Well,
and
you
so
just
small.
So you could just send a pallet like we do.
Send a pallet and
like
send
the
it-
elite tables.
Same exact way, and then you
Awesome.
send your tech out there to put it together.
Yeah, perfect.
So, and because you save so much money with our long arms because of the way they're built and how well they work, you don't have to pay $40,000. Now you're paying $30,000. You have a machine that's twice as good, and you can fly somebody to your house, give you training, set it up on location, right there. Everything's done at once, and it's $10,000 less
Exactly.
than what you get everybody else's for.
We've
So-
had to take ours through the balcony, the poles. I don't
Yeah.
know if you know the
Oh,
story.
no,
but
I didn't.
they
Tell me
share,
about that.
They
Oh, yeah.
share a story all the time. Because, you know, when Brian and whoever, Valerie or Kitty, whoever's, you know, dropping off the machines, putting them together, you know, everybody's home is a little more of a puzzle to figure out
Sure.
how to get it in. And, of course, mine's on the 3rd floor.
Oh, gosh.
So they're always talking about, well, at least you're not on the 3rd floor like my sister-in-law's because we have to take the pole
Yeah.
up the balcony, up the 2nd floor, and maneuver. So it's yeah.
Which is
So
cool.
this
That's
for-
not. We're not
yeah,
gonna
that's
have to do
gonna
that
be huge.
anymore.
Not anymore.
We're not gonna have to do that anymore.
And
So
I'm
that's one of the
looking-
things that I'm really looking forward to see how compact this thing really is.
Yeah.
But to put everything on one pallet and ship it out, oh man, that is a
Yes,
game
yeah.
changer.
It
And
is
here's the
huge.
thing. Everybody else in the world has to have dealers because it's not if, it's when they have problems with their timing.
Right.
We don't have those issues. That's all patented by us. So I can send, here's the thing, I don't need a wholesale dealer anymore. If you live in California, you want to buy my long arm, I don't need a dealer and long arm dealer in California anymore because I'm worried about my timing issues. So now I can put it on a pallet, I can ship it to you, I can have one of our reps go out there and set it up, and we leave, and we'll never hear from you again unless.
No, but you know what'll happen is that those dealers are going to want ours because they
Yeah.
know, oh, let me make some
Yeah.
money and I don't have to touch it.
Yeah.
No,
Right,
they've already
yeah.
done that. You know how many dealers we've had reach out to us to sell Martelli long arms?
Oh, I
think
know.
at the very beginning we allowed few, and they were kind of grandfathered in, but
Yeah.
we don't even do that
I know.
anymore because we don't need dealers. You know,
Right.
as much as everybody else needs dealers, we don't because of how ours is designed and made and whatnot. So that's huge benefit in and of itself. I know we're going to kind of run out of time here. Let me ask you 4 more questions, and then we're going to start getting into looking at some of this actual physical work that you do because I'm sure everybody wants to see it. Okay, we talked about how much for the quilt. What's your favorite part of the quilt? Let's ask this because we're still learning about Lynn here. What is your favorite part of the quilts
when it's finished.
when it's finished? I guess that's pretty easy. Not the actual quilting, the robotics, the free motion.
No, I'm kidding.
She's like, woo!
When I collect the check.
And you gotta have a sense of humor.
That's
But
good.
no, I think what's neat is when I pick out a new design and you're just sort of like, ooh, I think this is the right one because I've been doing it a long time, but still, you question yourself if you pick
Sure.
a design, you're not really 100% sure that's what needs to be on the top. But you go and you're just like, 'cause I have pulled some out. I've done it, and I'm like, not working. I literally will spend an hour and a half and rip all that out.
Oh,
wow.
And I will. I've done it. I've done it
Wow.
before.
Have you ever had somebody come up to you and go, and you pull out the work, you spent all that hard work, you pulled it out once or twice, and everybody
Yeah.
goes, everybody, you know that look, right? And they go,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's nice, Lynn.
Yeah.
Knowing they don't think it's nice. Have you ever had that before?
Oh,
Like they're
sure.
trying to be nice?
Oh, sure. You
So what
know
do you-
everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish I could say, but no, it happens.
Hey, at least
know?
you're honest, right?
You know, it
I could say,
happens.
hey, I never had a
You
bad
know,
customer.
But then that educates them, and they go, okay, well, let me see, what can I pick out? You know what I mean? I mean, everybody has a different personality.
Oh yeah,
You
it's
know,
like
not-
with fabric, selling fabric. You know, you put a bundle out there. Someone might feel like,
Yeah.
like our mystery bundle. Oh, that gagged me. I would never buy that. And then you have you sent the same mystery bundle out to 5 different people. One
Yeah.
hates it, and one be like, oh man, out of all the fabric I got, I love my mystery bundle the most.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
many
you never know.
personalities.
Everybody's, that's the thing. You can't, you try to make everybody happy, but sometimes, it's just the way it is.
Yeah,
You
can't
know?
please
You
everybody.
can't please
But so what do you
everybody.
do in a situation like that? So you just know for the next time, hey, let's work together picking the pattern.
Yeah, because I'm learning their personality too.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like I
Like a hairdresser, right? I
Yeah,
have one
I mean-
person that cuts my hair because I know how I want it.
right. And long armors can be the same way, you know. And so it's just the way it is.
No, that
It's
makes
good.
perfect sense to
Yeah.
me. So let's talk about, I know we just talked about fabric because of the mystery bundles, but is there a certain kind of fabric that you like? Is there a certain, like say I'm making a quilt, there's somebody out there that's like, you know what, I'm gonna have Lynn do some free motion quilting for me. I'm gonna test her out, but I'm gonna make me a quilt, but I gotta piece it first.
Yeah.
What kind of material do the
Stay
long
away from.
You stay away from what kind of long arms like, and what kind of maybe some of the brands that maybe to stay away from. I mean, I know there's some cheaper Walmart brands.
Yeah.
You want to stay to quilting fabric, but just give me your thoughts on
I
it.
mean, I've used all kinds of backing, all the way from a man's suit that was pieced together. Oh yeah, sheets, fleece, flannel. I mean, all kinds of stuff. I love flannel as a backing. Love it. I mean, I know we live in Florida. I love it. My machine loves it. Love it.
I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, the I mean, just your typical, quilting cotton fabric. That's
Better
all.
quality though.
Yeah,
I'm sure if
yeah,
you go,
good.
because I hear from some people they're like,
Some
oh,
will
I went to
splinter.
Walmart and
Yeah, the
and
Walmart will splinter.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
You'll see, I call it splintering.
well,
Yeah.
we went to Brian and I just made a trip up because we were starting to sell the fabric and. I went up to purchase some fabric in Tennessee. You know, the sweetest lady in the world. I opened up the bin. It was fabric galore. I'm look at it. Went up there. Thank you. Gone.
Yeah.
I was like, they're like, oh no, you can sell it for cheap. I'm like, that's not what my.
No.
I'm not saying you can't,
looks
but that's
bad.
not what my
Right,
people
right,
want.
right.
My people
Yeah.
want when they watch fabric sales from Martelli on Thursday, they're expecting a certain quality.
Right.
Now that's not to say that I won't do another fabric sale somewhere else with different fabric, but as far as my clientele,
Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way. When I go to shows and my demo fabric that I'm getting, I'm like, well, that must have come in and they didn't like it because
Yeah.
it like so
Uh-huh.
hard,
Oh, yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, who would even put
Yeah.
this on their skin, you
Mm.
know?
And that's the thing, like batiks. Everybody loves batiks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They love it. They love it. They love
Yeah.
it. They love it. And it's fine for the top. But I've had some. It's not all. But I've had. And just recently, I had one, and it was batik for the back, and it was like paper.
It was just too
It was.
hard.
It's so hard because it's so full
did it
of
disintegrate when it
colors.
wash and dry? Or have you ever seen how batik's made?
Oh, it's loaded with color
Yeah.
and dye. It's loaded. That's
Yeah.
why it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's overly loaded, and so it wasn't washed before it was quilted. So it was just hard. It was just so hard, and nothing. I got it done, but I have to admit it was so difficult. But it's not all batiks. But for some reason, that batik was just driving me crazy.
You know, that is a great question because we probably didn't touch on this at all. So let's say somebody has a quilt and they want to call up Lynn to have Lynn do their quilts because they want Lynn to try it out. Do you prefer them to wash it? Do you prefer them to dry it? How does that typically work?
Well, typically people aren't really washing today from what I'm receiving. And then there's some that wash everything. But if you don't wash, there are these color catcher sheets.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the company that makes them, but they're color catchers. And they look like what you put in the dryer. But you put them in your washing machine. You don't just use one, like go back to that batik. I mean, I literally told her because she had so much white on top, you're going to need like 15 color catchers because it's going to bleed on that top. And so I told her, use a bunch, and don't put it in the dryer until you use it, and then check, and it's going to look like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah.
That's the thing. You have to be careful. Reds, dark blues, anything that's really like a hard fabric, it definitely
You
wasn't
need to
washed.
wash it.
Yeah.
Have you ever done any quilting with Northcott fabric?
Yeah. That's
Oh
good
man,
stuff.
I just fall in love with that stuff. It's so
Yeah.
soft to the touch. There's like a few brands out there, but Northcott has always been one of my biggest, and I always sell out as soon as it comes in. But
Yeah.
I'm like, you touch it, you just want to crawl up with it,
Yeah.
snuggle
That's
with
good
it. So,
Yeah.
is there some fabric out there that lasts more so than others, or do you just say as long as you have a good?
No, it's a good quality.
good quality.
It'll last you a long time.
Yeah, that's what I
you
thought,
take care
too.
of it. Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
All right, that's cool. So let's get into. Hold on, I think. there's
Actually,
one more
I have a question
Go ahead,
for
go
you.
ahead, please.
Because, a lot of people maybe have a quilt that was a grandmother's quilt or whatever, and they are having to fix it, and, maybe they're even piecing it back together.
Yeah.
Do you ever do stuff like that where people are having to
I've
redo
done some
stuff?
repairs.
Okay.
And I'll tell them it won't, look.
It's not going to match.
Yeah, it's not going to match,
Yeah.
type of thing. But I'll try my best to use something that complements, because a lot of times when I do repairs on older quilts, they're disintegrating as soon as I put a
Right.
needle through there. So so a lot of times I'll just put like this really nice netting over it, and I'll tell them I'm not going to put one hole in this. It's done, type of thing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them don't put it in the washing machine. Don't dry it. You can just sort of air it out a little bit, like lay a sheet outside and put your quilt on top of it, air it out, and roll it. Don't fold it, because it'll just continue, breaking type
Sure.
of thing, just disintegrating per se. But yeah, I will do repairs, and there's times I'll tell them I can't do anything to it. It is what it is. And then there's times where, I'll fix it because a dog's gotten a hold of it. And so they get upset, and I'll tell them, I'll do the best I can, but it's not going to look like it was.
Right.
But I can, get it back to use, type of thing. And so, yeah.
I want to get really quickly, Jimmy, I know you're on Facebook, I'm on YouTube. I want to get some of the customers' comments real quick, and then right as we start looking at the customers' comments really quickly, I want to get into show and tell, and Lynn has brought a project. I want you to show this quilt, just kind of so everybody can see your work. Show that one that you brought, and the dinosaur quilt, kind of show the back. So you can do some show and tell. And while Lynn is talking, if you have any questions for Lynn, or if you're thinking about sending her some quilts, or you have some questions that you want to know because you're using a long arm quilter in your local area, go ahead and ask the question in the comment section below. And I want to mention a few comments real quick. Diana Bullington said, mine is the 12 by 13. She has the Martelli stand-up long arm. Bella Sideri, no, that's a city one. What's a stand-up? She has what's a stand-up?
La Cresta.
Yeah, La Cresta. She has a 12 by 13 room. She has the advantage table and a sewing table and her long arm. So that was kind of going along with what we were talking about earlier. One room does it all.
Yeah.
She has a Martelli
That's good.
studio.
She does have a
Yeah.
Martelli studio. We
That's
thank you for
great.
that. And she helps me sell a lot of long arms too. She's getting really good really quickly with hers. So I'm
Well, didn't
thankful.
she come
Barbara
and do a
Alice Smith.
class? Didn't
Yeah,
Diane
she's
come
come
and
and
do a
take
class?
she's come and take 3 classes I think already. But yeah, so if you have questions, and while the questions are coming in, I'll be monitoring YouTube. Jimmy will be monitoring Facebook questions. But as those questions come in, Lynn, if you don't mind talking a little bit about your projects and show the stitches.
And I've got a
Jim's got a
question.
camera. Yeah, go ahead.
Barbara Alice Smith wants to know, does Martelli have a long arm machine and or table?
Yes, we have both. We have a stand-up with robotics, and that's called the La Cresta. We also have a sit-down. Now, what separates our sit-down is not only how we set the timing in our sewing machines, but pretty much everybody else, the industry standard for a long-arm quilting table is a 2 foot by 4 foot. Ours is a 4 foot by 4 foot, and we also have electric leg lifts, which allows you to not only support the entire king-size quilt, but it also allows you to raise and lower the quilting machine so you can do free motion quilting comfortably, either sitting or standing.
Yeah, I love
We
that.
are the number
Yes,
one
nice.
selling sit down on the market that I am aware of. We sell so many sit downs, it's not even funny.
It's a game changer.
It is a
There's
game
nothing.
changer.
There's nothing like it on the market at all.
Nope.
I mean, when
nothing
you
at all.
can have your cutting table and your
Sewing right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then you can put your sewing machine on there as
Well,
well.
elaborate on that because people probably don't know what you're talking about. So I'll let you talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
Joe, go ahead.
So the Bella is literally a 4 foot by 4 foot table, like our sewing tables, like our cutting tables. That is, you obviously you have to have space that's going to be right in the center of your room because you're at 4 foot by 4 foot. But then you have a 26 by 38 cutting mat on one side of it, and then you have your quilting machine built in on the other side. And of course, the fabulous thing is that it adjusts to your height from 28 and a half to 48. So whether you want to stand up or sit down, you're able to do everything. And then you could even take your regular sewing machine and put it over on the cutting mat.
Put your binding on when you're done.
That's right, be
Yeah.
able to do your binding. I mean, it does absolutely everything. Now, it's free motion, it's not going to be a stand-up. You're not putting robotics into
Right,
it.
no
It's all free
robotics,
motion, but it is absolutely a phenomenal machine.
Yeah.
Diana 57M, she said, I did not know Martelli made its own long arm. Does it have the computer? Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So we do have 2 makes and models. We have our stand-up that has robotics, which you can do free motion quilting, and you can use the robotics on our stand-up. We also have one that is a sit-down. It's a machine built into a table, and that's the one that they were just discussing. So yes, we both have a sit-down and a stand-up. So that is a great question, Miss Diane 57M. We appreciate that. All right, so as the questions are coming in, Lynn, let's show some of those projects that you have real quick.
You want to show
start
her the
with-
dinosaur now?
Yeah, I
Which
love
is-
that one. I
It's so
absolutely
cute.
love the
Now-
dinosaur
Cute.
one.
Yeah.
So we'll show. You want to show the front?
Let me. I
foot?
stand up. Let me hold it. Here. Let's hold it.
I
Let's
know,
hold
it's
it.
so
Let's
tall.
hold
There
it.
you go. How does that look?
Perfect. I love it.
Here, I'll hold it
That's the
for
way
you.
I like it.
I'll hold it and you can explain. Lynn.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh.
It's so cute.
Yeah, David and Shannon and the gang, they do a great job bringing in all these kits to sell. You know, with the pandemic, we had to, they became very resourceful and put kits together and sold on Facebook. And so this is one of the kits. It's a little sideways, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
but this is all
You-
good.
I'm
But anyway,
sorry.
just
Well,
so
it's
they
the back
can
you need to see, but the
Yeah,
front
I'm going to
with
show you
the-
both sides, but I
Yeah.
want to show you how good she is at quilting.
Okay, this is just to be fun for a kid, you know, so he could see the dinosaurs because the front's
It's
busy.
darling.
But I did it in brown so they could see the count. You know, it teaches them how to count. How many rhinoceros is on the top row? How many brontosaurus is on the second? I sort of, you know, I still have that mother and learning trait still inside of me. So, so I just made it where it was just fun, you know. And
Well,
there's
look, I
4
mean-
different dinosaurs
Yeah,
on here.
Get a
There's
close
one.
up. Get a close up of the stitches going in and out of the corners. I'm telling you, you're not going to find better free motion quilting. Lynn is. I even though she's my sister-in-law, I have to brag on her.
But I mean, I've been doing it for a long time, so. But yeah, it's just fun. See all the different dinosaurs?
Now, was that free motion or was that?
This is computer, but
It is computer,
I did
okay.
a little free motion in between each row just to fill it up a little bit.
Okay.
I did some stippling in between.
Okay.
But it's brown on the front, it's cream on the, brown on the back, cream on the front. So,
Wow.
because I didn't want to do brown on the front, because it would sort of take away from all the pretty, you know.
See, that to me is absolutely incredible that you
Can we
do
show the front?
both.
Yeah. Are your arms tired?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
They get so tired.
good.
holding these. And this is this is like a twin size quilt for a cute little boy or girl.
Yeah, it's
You know,
darling.
type of thing. But I did it in cream on the front because you can't see my work.
No, you
know?
can't.
So that's why I was like, let's just do a cream and I'll use brown thread so they can play on the back, you know, and just sort of have fun
It's
with
almost fun, you know, when I picked it up off the floor out there, it was on the wall, and it's
Yeah.
darling. But I almost wish that you guys, David, could like almost fold it in half in a way so that they could see the back of
I'm
it
going to.
as
I-
well.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
good
working
point,
on
yeah.
putting
You
more
know,
quilts
so
Yeah,
they-
up.
usually I pull up a corner and I'll bring it up like that.
Yeah,
Just so
because
they
it's
can
so
see,
cute that the
yeah.
dinosaurs are actually in
Because it's
the
hiding it,
quilting.
yeah, it's
Yes,
hiding it.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, we done with this
Yeah,
one?
we're done.
Yeah.
All right, so
That's
let's.
so
I know you
cute.
have one in your lap, Lynn. So let's
Oh.
show that one and talk about it. And listen, folks, as you have questions after we show this, we'll go over the questions, and then we're
Show
gonna.
on that side,
and
not
then-
this side. Like I'll
Show on
stop
this side?
way. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, and then we're gonna, after we go over the questions, we're gonna let you know how you
You
get a
did
hold of
pretty
Lynn
good
one
through
more
that.
time. One
Oh
more
yeah, how do you
time.
get through that bar?
Do you need me to help hold that? Or
No, this is little. This is
Okay.
a 45 by 45.
Okay,
This
how
is
pretty that is.
Robert Hoffman, his fabric.
Wow.
Yeah, you
It's
see a lot. I see a lot of people do
Yeah,
this.
these are great practice pieces.
Oh, I
They
think we
are-
actually. I think
yeah.
for our last
Yeah,
retreat,
you did the blue one.
Yep.
Yep. I love red. Red's my favorite color. But they come in cream and green. They come in all these different colors. And but this is a great way. This is all free motion.
It brings it to life.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what it does.
And but I just thought, yeah, this is by Robert
But
Hoffman.
you know what I love is how you've got different designs, literally
Yeah,
in
it's like a
each
practice
leaf.
sheet. It's
Yeah,
a practice. Literally, it's a practice sheet.
and so this was free motion.
It's all free motion. Yeah. And he
Okay,
just
so when
did
you
something
free
different.
motion though, so were you on a sit down or your stand up?
Oh, I did my stand up.
Oh, the
yeah, I
stand-up,
just did on
okay,
my
okay.
Cresta. But yeah, you can just see all the different work and in each leaf. It's just fun.
So
yeah.
nice.
And you just put up and play some more, and you can practice on it before you do another quilt because it's muscle memory. So, but typically once it's there, it's pretty much there. But if it's been a while,
That's
you
why I
tend
love
to practice.
when we do those bundles. Sometimes I'll get those workbooks, and
Mm-hmm.
in those workbooks, it shows you the motion.
Those always sell
Yeah.
out so quickly.
I sell them so quick, and
Yeah.
I've been out, but I'm going to have Shannon order some more of those.
Well,
But it's a
here's
book that gives you all the motions, and then I do the hoop, I do some fabric, and then I do perfect. There you go.
Like when I started, I was crazy on YouTube. YouTube. Oh my gosh, they were my great teachers there, and there's a lot of them out there. But of course, everybody loves Miss Angela Walters. She's
Yeah,
phenomenal.
She's talented.
I always, whenever somebody comes and buys one of our machines, I always recommend some of these books, especially for the sit down, since it's free motion only. Vicki Rubel, if I'm saying her name correctly, I love her. But again, Angela Walters, and then this is Joni Poole, I love her book, and then another Angela Walters. But there's so many other people, but I just grabbed real quick from the house and just so you can see that I had to, when you start, you can have your own, trait, your own personality, but building that muscle memory. And just if you go through these books, I mean, you're just, the creative side just goes, and you may take
Juices start flowing.
Yeah, the juice start flowing, and you might do your own design.
So
then you start.
what would you say to the person that really wants to free motion? And I will tell you, so many people are like, oh gosh, I wanted free motion, but I'm so scared. So what would you say to that person to ease their mind?
Yeah, what I did, and that's just what I did when I was teaching the classes, is you just a solid color, fabric, put it on the long arm or whatever, and take like chalk and just chalk out on that solid color, and we would just do. I would just do like L's, like the lowercase L, because what you want to start learning is control. You want to learn to control.
Not outrunning your machine.
Yeah, not
Don't
outrunning.
want to outrun your machine.
Yeah, or you will have issues and you'll get frustrated. But just learning the control and the weight and learning to contribute, just.
Can I make a suggestion? And this is how I learned.
Yeah.
And if you're new watching, my mom actually gave me this idea, and I thought it was genius. So you put on music, and you just kind of go with the rhythm a little bit. And then once you learn that, just understand that your machine is the music. You follow your machine. You can hear it. If you start going a little bit too quick, you'll be able, if you do it with music on a dry run, you'll be able to go, oh, I'm going too fast, and slow it down a little bit. Like I can go here's the thing I'm going to tell you
so
about.
So you're not listening to AC/DC?
No, you can't. I don't think you're going to do very well with that one. The one thing that I absolutely love with that concept is our sit down, it has speed control, not stitch regulation. There's a huge difference. Stitch regulation, it's like walking forward, and speed control is like walking backwards again. But here's the thing. With stitch regulation, your machine's regulating stitch regulation. With speed control, you dictate at the speed that you want to go.
Feature.
Huge, huge difference. And most all the other sit-down long arms in the market have stitch regulation. But here's the problem. Stitch regulation, you learn it, and then you turn it off and never use it again. Speed control, you will always use, because every pattern is different. Every pattern is different. And that's where that speed control comes in. Which is, I'm glad we got into that topic, because not a lot of people know that. And hopefully I explain it in such a way where it makes sense. That's why you always want to get a sit-down machine that has speed control and not stitch regulation. Night and day difference.
Y'all starting to talk Miss LaJudas into wanting to get a long arm.
Oh, yeah, please.
So
where do you live? Come on down.
So questions, real quick, Jimmy. Let's go over questions. I don't have any here on YouTube.
May I say that Sue Pikarski said she really enjoys watching Being Martelli on PureFlix.
Oh, cool. Thank
So
you. Thank
that's
you. We
going
appreciate
over
that.
really well. When overlaying net, okay, Sarah Sager. When overlaying net, you work out quilt cotton netting.
Is that German?
I don't.
Let me read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me read it. All right. And then who is it?
It's Sarah.
When overlaying workout quilt cotton netting. So in other words, you want to use cotton netting. I think that's what I'm taking away. Have you ever used cotton netting? I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Miss Sager, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah. Cotton netting, I'm not sure.
I'm not familiar with that. All right,
See,
so
we're always learning.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. At least,
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
Yeah, everybody's learned something different.
So real quick, let's go over each one of those quilting products that you have, and then we're going to wrap it up real quick because we're getting close to running out of time. I want to ask Lynn one more time. I don't know if she wants to give a phone number or how to get in touch with her. I'm going to leave that up to
How
her.
about the shop phone number?
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank
So
you.
let's do this. Let's go over each one of those products, Joe. And if you want one of these products that you see, you can go to the website to purchase those. We have all these on the MartelliNotions.com website. We would love for you to go over there and get it there. And then of what she's showing. And then I'm going to try to put a workstation bundle together that shows you movements, and I'll try to do a bundle there with maybe some thread or something. But go over those products one more time, Joe, and then we're gonna end the Talking Martelli today with getting in touch with Lynn to try Lynn out if you want to have somebody new doing your quilt. So go ahead, Ms.
okay. So you have the 8-inch, and there is also an 11-inch quilting hoop. Again, you can use it on a sit down. You can use it on your domestic machines. What do you think, though? Would you be concerned with the throat size? Usually I tell people it depends on the throat size.
Yeah,
So.
or if you have an extension on your sewing machine.
True.
I mean, that's huge. I would just go right, either one.
Well, and in fact, Al and I were talking about this today. you really need an
You
extension.
do.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you're
yeah,
using
yeah.
that, you definitely.
You know,
right.
because you've got to have that flat surface, unless your machine is built in
So,
to the table.
just in case you're wondering, she's talking about domestic machines. If you're buying a long arm, the chances are, if you're buying a long arm and a table, you're going to have at least a 2x4. But if you have a Martelli's, you'll have a 4 foot by 4 foot, not
Right.
a 2x4
Right, right,
foot.
right.
But you want a flat area, especially if you're on your domestic machine.
And actually, and I did not grab, we actually have a rectangle, and we also have a square that has acrylic rulers in it so that you can do ruler work as well.
Show that.
Now those, you definitely have to have the bigger throat. So
Right,
that's
right.
going to be your sit-down machine. You know, hopefully you have the Bella or purchase the Bella, but you can use it on any other quilting machine as well. So I think David went to go grab those really quick. We also, and you know, I think, I don't know if I told you this, but whenever I go and do store events, I always will actually pull a customer out of the audience and ask them to come up, because a lot of people want to learn how to free motion. It's expensive. You know, and I tease them, I'm like, okay, do you free motion or do you quilt by check?
Yeah,
You know?
that's cute.
And so a lot of times they're like, oh, I quilt by check, you know, and that's okay if you quilt by check. But these are, you know, instead of wearing gloves, like, you know, you mentioned that you used to wear gloves, and you know, as you know, gloves are very hard on your body.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you're holding on like this, you're holding on like this. It's your hands,
Yeah.
your shoulders,
Right.
and
Cramp,
you know,
cramp.
that's right. And you know, the one thing about Martelli's in general, and literally everything we do, is about ergonomics. You know, and you can do a lot more if you feel better. So you have the hoops, and then we have the quilting paddles.
These are
Now,
nice.
I like these a lot. So
I
do
like
you
them.
use these?
I
Not
don't since
anymore?
yeah, but I would if I only had the sit down for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you still do stuff on your domestic machine?
No.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Not even,
Yeah.
like if you were going to do a smaller project, like a.
I'd rather put it on
Placemat
my
or
long run.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
I
a
still put it
placemat.
on my long
Yeah.
run.
Do you
I
really?
do.
Yeah, that's the thing about getting spoiled with the long arm.
I
Yeah.
know. But you know, and the thing is not everyone can afford a big long arm. So, and that's okay. But so don't be afraid to free motion on your domestic machine.
Right.
You know,
You
I
can do it.
mean,
That's how I started.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's how you
Yeah.
start.
A lot
So
of people do it all the time.
absolutely. So these are the quilting paddles, and I love these. Now, if you remember earlier, David was talking about how you would get like, you know, some gaps, like it would gather on you. So when you go to quilt with these, and I do like them because you have a little bit more diversity of what you can do with it, but you have to use a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit of out pressure so that you can sit there and do your free motion. Because obviously, if I go like this, you don't want to, you know.
Yeah, that's why it's
So-
fatter on the ends for that very reason.
Right. So, you know, and it doesn't, you know, ladies would be like this. No, you don't have to do that. It's a little bit of out pressure. But you can use these for several different things. I always tell people, you know, if you want to follow a ruler, put an acrylic ruler down and put these on top and follow those so that you can do
You
ruler
know who
work.
uses those really well?
Who?
The G and Sherry. They use
Oh,
those
do
because
they?
they do a lot of free
they
motion
do.
quilting projects.
Yeah.
And they're really good. I think that's one of their go-to. I could be wrong about this, but I think that's one of their
I think
go-to
you're
free
right.
motion quilting.
I
They
think
use
you-
a lot.
Yeah.
I do
They're-
want to add. I want to add one more thing too, and I forgot to mention this. I feel like kicking myself. So on our quilting table, you know, everybody else's is 2x4. Ours is 4x4. Right? We have a special way we set our timing, all that. But one of the coolest features is a presser foot that we have for our long arm. It's a presser foot that has a ball bearing on the end.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're doing ruler work a lot of times and you're following on a foot, there's friction there. So when you're going around a circle, the circles aren't always rounded. Sometimes they get more ovally. But because the base of our foot where the rulers follow, that is it's actually on a ball bearing. So the ball bearing foot is turning. So when you're going around a radius, it makes it so much easier to follow when you're going around anything with a curve. We are the only foot on the market we're the only machine on the market that has that foot. And of course, that's the Martelli ball bearing foot. That alone, that one product alone makes the. I mean, of course, I could go on in details about different features and benefits we have, but that one benefit is huge, having a ball bearing foot. So I'm going to also hand you this, Joe, right there.
So this is the rectangle, and it does have, I think it comes with 3 or 4 different acrylic rulers, so you can go different. And then we have a square one as well. You can buy extra ones. You can actually get a wave. There's a chevron. I don't even remember, but there's several different ones. But these are great. But this, you really have
Show
to
them
be
how
on
they take it out. Show them how
This
they take
you
it
have
out.
to be on a sit down. They literally are just popping out. So the square you can go at an
Yes,
angle, but
yep.
this you cannot.
Nope.
So you can just go, well.
But we have tons
actually-
of free motion. It goes a long ways. We have
Yeah.
tons of different free motion quilting rulers. And then also we have the nested circles. This is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-piece circle set that kind of opens so you can get it around your foot. That allows you to do different size circle in a circle or just, circular patterns.
That's
and this is
nice.
this is so
Nice.
awesome. And this is our long arm nested circle set. And especially if you have our ball bearing foot, this right here, no brainer. Because think about it, you do free motion quilting, you do ruler work, you're going to use the radius a
Show
lot.
them,
for
show them the
different-
picture a little bit there,
Yeah.
so you don't have to take that part.
Yeah.
That way they can just see the picture and how
So
it
this
looks.
one right here, it's just
Hand it to her.
I want to say
Hand it
it's
to me.
I want to say it's a 5-piece nested 1, 2,
So-
3, 4, 6-piece.
So it's actually like popping out like that. Because this is
And then it has a
all-
little gap so you can put it around your foot, but it still allows it to close and be a complete circle. Oh, I tell you what, I really enjoyed the show. I really,
I think it was
did
great.
enjoy
I
the
think it was
show.
educational.
Lynn, we
Enjoyed
love
it.
you. We appreciate you coming on to the show. I was excited when I found out that you were going to do it because Lynn's not always one that gets in front of cameras. I'm like, but people need your knowledge so bad. And
Well,
she said, because you're my favorite brother-in-law, I'll do that.
yeah.
All right. I think I'm our only brother-in-law. I think.
Well,
Am
no,
I?
she might have siblings.
No, I've had others.
Oh, do you? Like I said, she said I'm her favorite brother-in-law.
Her,
But I,
her favorite
I
Martelli.
always say he's a little brother and never wanted.
There
But
you
now
go.
but now I've reversed it. I
Yeah.
say he's a little brother I've always wanted.
Yeah.
Well, and I have to tell you, so I was talking to David this morning, and of course Brian is gone, and so he was like, "Well, do you want to come in and doing talking Martelli with me?" And I said, "What are you doing today?" He's like, "Oh, Lynn's coming in with free motion." I said, "Oh, that's
Okay,
great."
I'm glad
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
here. I'm glad you're here.
But I had a really good time. Thank you for coming on, Lynn. We
Thanks
love
for
you.
watching.
One more time, the number, if you want to get a hold of Lynn or you want to try Lynn out, I'm telling you by experience and talking to many other people in the quilting world, she's very popular in Pensacola and surrounding areas because so many people use her now. If you want to try Lynn out, I'm vouching for her. She's absolutely fantastic. The number to our shop is area code 850-542-4440. Again, that's 850-542-4440. When you call, ask for Lynn. If she is not in, leave your name, your number, and a small message. I'll make sure that Lynn gets that message so she can get in touch with you so she can try doing your quilt. Now, if they want to see some of your work, Lynn, one more time, Facebook page.
Oh, Quilts by Sloan. And I haven't posted in a while just because been
So
busy.
busy.
I've been
Doing
very
free motion
busy.
quilting. That's what she's been
And,
busy doing.
So,
But are there several of your
yeah,
past
but there's a
quilts
lot
up there
of
so they can
quilts
see?
on there. Yeah.
And one last thing before we sign off, where can they go if they want to try you out and they want to find, before they even get with you, they want to have a pattern pre-ready to go? What are some of the places they can go check out those patterns?
Urban Elements, URBANELEMENTZ.com or TK Quilting.
Say that one more time.
TK Quilting, yeah, letter
Okay.
T, letter K, I got you. Quilting.com or Creative Stitches, or just Google Edge to Edge computer designs, and you'll find all kinds of stuff.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. So there you have it. You have a professional free motion quilting.
Awesome.
Hopefully you had a lot of good inspirational information and accumulated knowledge between everybody sitting here. If you don't have a long arm and you want to learn more about the Martelli long arm, you can call the office and ask for me. I'll reach back out to you. I would love to share more about the features and benefits of the Martelli. And we have so many people. Like, I could sit here and name names, but I'm not going to do it because I know I would forget people. I'll mention a few. Like, we've had Diana Bullington come from Georgia. We've had... I'm going to forget names. I'm going to leave it at that. We've had many people travel from all over the United States to come here to buy their long arm machine. And I'm telling you right now, it is worth the drive and it is worth the wait.
And plus our beautiful beaches,
Yeah, beautiful beaches, yeah.
It's definitely worth the trip.
And we do long arm classes.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Lynn partakes in some of those. I know
Yeah.
Janine James. By the way, shout out to Miss Janine James. She's awesome. She's been working with our long arm. That was the first long arm I ever sold. I think it was like 12 years ago.
From
Oh.
Louisiana?
I think,
No. Is she?
It was either Louisiana or Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Yeah.
It was Louisiana or Mississippi, one of the two. First long arm I ever sold, and that was back before I even knew what a long arm was.
Yeah, like she's had every generation.
Yeah, yeah. And she's so knowledgeable. The top
Yeah.
two would be Lynn and Janine. Both have the most knowledge of anybody that I'm aware of that has a Martelli long arm. I know Diane's eagerly learning, and she's moving up that ladder very quickly, but she's only had it a month, but she's still good. But she can answer a lot of the questions. I know Lynn can answer. Oh, we have a long arm quilting group. I don't know if you have to have a long arm to be accepted, but I think there's 2 groups. One, you don't have to be a member. But anyways, you have the number to the office. We so much enjoyed it. Thank you for showing up today.
Take care,
Don't miss
everyone.
this Thursday. We have our fabric sale. That is from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. I have a really cool starting bundle and ending bundle this week. Brian won't be here, but we'll have a lot of fun. I'll see if I can get somebody to step in and sit in for him. If not, you're just going to have to enjoy me.
Yay!
We'll see y'all Thursday
Take
from 1 to
care,
7.
everyone.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
evening, everybody. Bye-bye
Bye-bye.
now.